Hey, welcome to Following Science, the podcast where we explore the deep questions of life, the universe, and everything in between. I'm your host, Rutu Parl, and today we're taking on one of the biggest questions humanity has ever asked. What does it mean to be human? You probably heard this question asked a million times, maybe in a philosophy class or late at night when you're lying awake wondering about life. But today we're going to break it down scientifically, philosophically, and in ways that challenge our understanding of the mind itself. We'll explore the enigma of consciousness, how it works, how it shapes our identity, and why it's still one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in science. From brain waves and neural networks to deep philosophical puzzles, we'll uncover how the mind makes sense of reality and how our consciousness may be the very essence of what makes us human. But be prepared, by the end of this episode, you might walk away with more questions than answers. And that's the beauty of exploring our consciousness. It's a journey into the unknown. So, what does it mean to be human? Let's begin. Let's start by asking a deceptively simple question. What is consciousness? Consciousness is one of those words that we all use, but when you really stop and think about it, it's incredibly hard to define. It's a state of being aware of and able to think about our own existence, sensations, thoughts, and surroundings. But it's more than just awareness. It's that rich personal experience of being alive, of having a mind that can reflect on itself. Think of it this way. Right now you're hearing my voice. That's auditory input. Sound waves hitting your eardrum. But consciousness is what turns that physical input into the subjective experience of hearing. It's the voice in your head that tells you, I'm listening to a podcast. It's what makes pain painful, love meaningful, and memories vivid. But why do we experience things this way? Why is there something it feels like to be you? And how does that feeling emerge from a 3-pound mass of neurons inside your skull? That's where things get really interesting. Neuroscientists have mapped out the brain extensively. We know which parts of the brain control movement, speech, emotions, and memory. But when it comes to understanding consciousness itself, the exact mechanism that creates subjective experience, we're still in the dark. This is what philosopher David Chalmers famously called the quote-unquote hard problem of consciousness. We can explain how the brain works, but not why it feels like something to be you. And when I say something to be you, I mean if you looked at a certain clothes or if you looked at a certain room and you're like, oh my god, that fits my vibe, that is so me. But what defines the fact that it's you? And that's where things get fascinating. And of course, that leads us to another question. Are humans the only creatures capable of such high-level consciousness? And if not, what separates us from other animals? When we talk about consciousness, we often think of it as something uniquely human. But recent research shows that animals experience varying degrees of consciousness too. Many animals exhibit self-awareness, problem-solving, and even empathy. Elephants, for example, mourn their dead and recognize themselves in mirrors. Dolphins can communicate complex ideas and form tight social bonds. And of course, primates like chimpanzees show remarkable intelligence and emotional depth. But while animals may be conscious in some form, human consciousness is on another level. What makes us different is our ability to imagine and plan for the future. We don't just react to our surroundings, we actively shape the world around us based on abstract ideas. We can think beyond the immediate moment, strategize, and create complex narratives about the past and the future. This ability to mentally time travel, to project ourselves into different scenarios, is a key element that sets human consciousness apart. For example, a squirrel might bury nuts for the winter, which shows some future planning. But humans, we can plan cities, design technologies, write novels that span hundreds of years, and even contemplate life after death. We imagine worlds that don't exist, and through creativity and innovation, we bring those worlds into being. But what if complexity of human consciousness isn't just about advanced thinking or future planning? What if it's also about our emotional depth, our ability to emphasize, or rather empathize, and our capacity for self-reflection? This brings us to another crucial aspect of being human, our emotions. Humans are social creatures. Our survival has always depended on our ability to connect with others, to form communities, and to share ideas. And it's our emotions that often drive these connections. Think about it. Emotions like love, fear, anger, and joy not only guide our personal decisions, but also shape entire societies. Empathy, in particular, is a powerful force. It's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to feel what they're truly feeling. This capacity for empathy might be the cornerstone of what makes us truly human. Neuroscientists have identified a quote-unquote social brain network that lights up when we engage in social interactions. This network involves regions of the brain like the prefrontal cortex and the temporoparietal junction, which helps us process social cues and understand other people's mental states. Interestingly, the same parts of our brain that fire when we experience our own pain also activate when we see someone else in pain. This ability to empathize is so fundamental to the human experience that without it, our social bonds would crumble. But emotions and empathy aren't there just for survival. They add depth and meaning to our lives. They allow us to form deep relationships, to experience art, music, and culture in ways that go beyond mere just survival instincts. They let us contemplate the great questions of life, like what does it mean to be alive, to be human? And it's in these moments of deep reflection, of awe, wonder, and even existential crisis that we realize consciousness isn't just a tool for navigating the world. It's the essence of our personal experience. And that brings us to the philosophical heart of this discussion. How do we make sense of this thing that we call consciousness? So far, we've explored the biology of consciousness and the emotional and social aspects that make us human. But here's the mind-bending part. Consciousness doesn't just help us understand reality, it also creates our experience of reality. Let me explain. Our brains are constantly receiving data from the outside world, such as light hitting our eyes, sound waves entering our ears, sensory signals from our skin. But none of these inputs mean anything until our brain processes them and creates a coherent experience. What we experience as quote-unquote reality is essentially a mental construction, a best guess by our brain based on the information it's receiving. So when people tell you in those motivational speeches that you can literally create your own reality, they're not lying, because your reality is literally your brain telling you that, oh, okay, this is what your life is like. So if you want to change what your life is like, all you have to tell your brain is, this is what it's actually like, and it will change the entire mental construction it has around your reality, and thus change your reality for it to become something more positive. Now, another example is when you look at a red apple, photons of light bounce off the apple and hit your retina, but you don't actually see the photons. What you see is your brain's interpretation of the data, a red, shiny apple. Your perception of color, shape, and texture all happens inside your mind. Now here's the trippy part. What if reality, as we know, is just a virtual simulation inside our heads? Some scientists and philosophers argue that we can never truly know what the world out there is like. We only know our brain's interpretation of it. In this sense, consciousness is not just something we have, but it's the very thing that constructs our experience of the world. This brings us to the big philosophical question. If our perception of reality is a construction, then what's real? Can consciousness exist without a body? And how does our mind shape our understanding of the universe? These are questions that take us beyond neuroscience and into the realm of philosophy and even to some extent quantum physics. Now, as we look towards the future, we're left with more questions than answers. Will we ever fully understand consciousness? Can we recreate it in machines? With the rapid advancements in artificial intelligence, scientists are beginning to grapple with the possibility of creating conscious machines. AI systems like ChatGPT or advanced neural networks can mimic human-like responses, solve problems, and even learn from data. But are they truly conscious? Most researchers agree that while AI can stimulate some aspects of human cognition, it lacks subjective experience. There's no quote-unquote self inside a machine. But what if one day we could upload human consciousness into digital format? Could we live forever as digital beings, freed from the limitations of our physical bodies? Some futurists believe this is a possibility, a future where the line between human and machine consciousness blurs, creating a new definition of what it means to be human. But these ideas open up a Pandora's box of ethical and philosophical questions. If we create conscious machines, do they deserve rights? Can consciousness exist without a biological brain? And if we do one day merge with machines, will we still be human? Now, I mentioned before that consciousness and quantum physics has a connection. So let's talk about that. One of the most compelling intersections between consciousness and quantum physics is the phenomenon known as the observer effect. In quantum physics, particles such as electrons or photons do not have a fixed position or state until they are observed or measured. Instead, they exist in a state of probability, described by a quote-unquote wave function, where they occupy multiple positions or states simultaneously. This is known as the quantum superposition. However, when an observation or measurement is made, the wave function collapses, and the particle adopts a definite position or state. This raises a profound question. Could consciousness, specifically the act of observing, be responsible for this collapse? Some physicists and philosophers suggest that the conscious mind may play an active role in determining the outcome of quantum events, meaning that consciousness itself could be a fundamental component of reality. Now, while this idea remains speculative and controversial in some cases, it highlights the deep philosophical implications of quantum mechanics and challenges the classical view that the universe exists independently of our perception of it. Now, quantum entanglement is another mind-bending phenomenon that has interesting parallels to consciousness. When two parties become entangled, they remain connected in such a way that the state of one particle instantly influences the state of another, even if they are separated by vast distances. This is known as non-locality. What's remarkable about entanglement is that this instantaneous connection occurs faster than the speed of light, defying the traditional limitations of space and time as defined by Einstein's theory of relativity. Now, if we apply this concept to consciousness, some theorists speculate that human consciousness might also be non-local, potentially connected across vast distances without the need for direct physical interaction. This could explain certain anomalous experiences such as synchronity, intuition, or even collective consciousness, the idea that human minds are interconnected on a deeper quantum level. Although these ideas remain in the realm of speculation, they offer a tantalizing glimpse into how quantum physics might reveal the interconnected nature of consciousness. Now, perhaps the most direct link to consciousness with quantum physics comes from the orchestrated objective reduction theory, proposed by physicist Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. Their theory suggests that consciousness arises from quantum processes occurring inside microtubules, which are tiny structures within the neurons of the brain. These microtubules, according to the theory, are capable of sustaining quantum states, allowing for quantum coherence with the brain. Penrose and Hameroff argue that quantum states within the microtubules are orchestrated and reduced in a process that gives rise to the conscious experience. Essentially, they propose that the nonlinear, non-deterministic nature of quantum mechanics might explain why consciousness feels subjective, abstract, and even mysterious. While this theory is highly debated and remains unproven, it offers a fantastic hypothesis that positions consciousness as a quantum phenomenon, potentially bridging the gap between the physical workings of the brain and the subjective experience of being. If quantum processes are indeed involved in consciousness, it could fundamentally alter our understanding of the mind and its connection to the physical universe. Now, what does it mean to be human? Is it our biology, our emotions, our ability to reflect on ourselves, or the mystery of consciousness? The answer is all of these things, and perhaps even more. Consciousness is a lens through which we experience the world, the engine of our thoughts, emotions, and creativity. It's the seat of our humanity. But as we've explored today, consciousness is still an unsolved mystery. The more we learn about it, the more we realize how little we actually understand. It's as if consciousness is a puzzle with missing pieces, and those pieces are scattered across neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, and even the far reaches of physics. What we do know is that exploring consciousness is a journey into the very essence of what makes us, us. And as we continue to ask questions, explore new theories, and push the boundaries of science, we may one day unlock the full mystery of what it means to be human, or perhaps the mystery will only deepen. Now, as I wrap up this episode, I just want to thank you all for joining me into this fantastic journey through the mind. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Following Science, leave a review, and share it with anyone who's ever pondered the mysteries of consciousness. I love hearing from you guys, so please keep reaching out. And until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the science behind what makes us human. This is your host, Rutu Parl, signing off.